Brothers Automotive, as we bring in Donnie now. Hey, Donnie, hope all is well. We talked last week a ton, Don, about this UNLV, the quarterback thing, and Matthew Sluka and NIL and all this stuff. Then the new guy, Hajj Malik Williams, comes in and looks pretty good, and they move on without missing a beat. This is something they got going on out there in Vegas right now.
It really is. And this guy comes in from Campbell College. First of all, I think he's like 24 years old, 25 years old. He's one of these guys that's been playing college football forever. I had to look up Campbell College. Brian, I've been all over the country in college campuses for the last 30 years doing talks and everything else. I've never heard of Campbell College. Apparently, they're the Fighting Camels.
They're the Camels.
The Campbell Camels. Never heard of them. But here comes Malik, Williams, and he's an experienced guy. He had a good career at Campbell College. He's an older guy, so he's a little more mature. He steps in a role at a time when things are pretty controversial, and apparently this team rallied around him. He was very efficient with the football. He's a big guy. He runs well. He's a pretty good quarterback, and he just got caught up behind another really good quarterback, and now he has a chance to shine. And he's going to present Syracuse some problems tomorrow night. Yeah,
you look at it and you think, generally when you're going in, like if you're Syracuse, if you're anybody in the country, right, like, oh, we're playing the backup quarterback. I'm not saying this is the team slots, but certainly if you're the fans, you're like, this game should be easier. Then you look at what happened with them, you're like, maybe it's the rest of the team that's really good, and the quarterback position just remains solid. This seems to be the rare situation where you get the backup, and nothing really has changed for the worse in favor of Syracuse here.
Yeah, and not only has nothing changed for the worse, it looks like, to your point, I think they might even be a better team.
Yeah. Which is wild, and he seems to have full support of the locker room and the whole thing. He's probably going to be the one by the end of the year that ends up with this NIL money. Someone's going to write him a check by the end of the season.
Somebody's going to get that cash. It might be him.
Yeah, I mean, well, why not? I said there is, whether it's associated with UNLV or not, I know there's plenty of cash rolling around Las Vegas. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
The other story involving UNLV we've been watching here is this crazy tug of war going on between the reforming Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Looks like UNLV's opted to stay in the Mountain West, and randomly they're going to be one of the schools that's ending up with all this old Pac-12 money from like Oregon and Stanford, which is kind of wild. What do you make of this situation that UNLV, as finding a conference has found them in here in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, all the realignment over the years has been about how you stay in the money.
Yeah.
And now the big money is definitely going in a direction that's going to be, it's going to be the have and have-nots. And I think schools like UNLV. Sorry about that. I glitched on my phone. And these smaller conferences, and when I say smaller conferences like Mountain West, and they're going to be middle of the road. And I think the best thing that they can hope for is getting a good TV package that enables them to maintain Division what would normally be FCS Division I status. The big money is definitely going to go into. We saw SEC and Big Ten talking about a conference schedule package where they're just going to consolidate the biggest programs. I think everyone else is just going to try to find a slot. And obviously, having a conference affiliation still gives you a championship game and still gives you a little bit of cash in there.
We got Don McPherson with us, our weekly Thursday conversation brought to you by Feldman Brothers Automotive. And Don, I know UNLV has been there the whole time. It's kind of wild to watch what has happened in the city of Las Vegas in the sporting landscape here in the last 5 years. I mean, it used to be, the Running Rebels, Jerry Tarkanian, big heavyweight fights, and then the gambling for everything else was there. Now, NFL's there, NHL's there, Major League Baseball is coming. It's wild how much the city's been embraced here by everybody here the last 5 years.
I've talked about this, and I've been very critical about what's going on in college football, and to the point where I think that it's kind of immoral when you see guys just bouncing from school to school, whether or not their credits are going to transfer. But even before transfer, or I should say after transfer, when NIL came in, it was all those years when college athletics was trying to get agents and boosters out of the game. NIL brought them all back in. The other thing that college, and it's ironic that Pete Rose just passed away, because the other thing that we were so adamant about, and you can go back to you sports historians, you don't have to go back all the way back to the Chicago White Sox, but you can go back to Boston College when there was a gambling scandal out of Marianne's Bar right there adjacent to in Chestnut Hill, when basketball players were being accused of gambling, and there was some other, I think it was Fordham University in the 70s. We have just taken the entire college football apparatus and walked it right back into Sin City. And it is appalling to me that you even have the Baker, the head of the NCAA, saying, "Oh, we should maybe get in touch with FanDuel and DraftKings and start allowing gambling on college football." The NFL's done it already. I'm a member of the New York City chapter of the National Football Foundation. During COVID, the Hall of Fame moved its dinner to Vegas. I refuse to go. And I just think it's so antithetical to everything that we've tried to maintain some integrity in the sport. To your point, everyone's there now, and it's adjacent to the heart of legalized gambling and everything else, and I don't like it. And I think that it's an indication of where I have a friend, Jeff Mangrum, who's a teammate and is a professor up on campus at SU, and he keeps yelling at me every time I come in with this purity conversation that the business has moved on. It's entertainment, and that's all people care about. The problem is that they're academic institutions that are at the core of it.
Neither here nor there. Syracuse is a 6.5-point dog currently right now for the game. Friday. A game you're not allowed to bet on in the state of New York, but you can bet on in fabulous Las Vegas. So there you are, Donnie.
I remember when the newspapers, I go back to newspapers, I remember when the newspapers were being critical of athletes and behavior, and at the same time they had the Vegas line listed in the paper. Like, which is it?
Exactly. Now I just had to click one button and I can look at the line here on my computer while we're talking.
Exactly.
Speaking of Pete Rose, they should put a memorial in Caesars in Vegas. There's like this card shop, and he spent most of his last 30 years signing autographs at like a folding table in front of it. They should memorialize that.
That's exactly right. He absolutely did.
Oh man. Okay, we got Don McPherson. Let's hit this game here, Donnie. I look back to last week, and they won by 4 touchdowns. Like, it was never in doubt down the stretch. But man, like, watching the game, you're like, yeah, what exactly is going on? What kind of read did you get out of that Holy Cross game last week?
I said this about the Stanford game, that the Stanford game was an attitude game. I thought the Holy Cross game was similar in that it didn't matter if this was if it was Holy Cross or if it was, if it were Penn State. They had to go out and play a clean game, and they didn't. There were just some mishaps, some little things here and there. Just the overall game did not look sharp. I thought they came out flat against Stanford. I didn't see that kind of spark. I think the old line is starting to show some signs, and blown coverages here and there. I saw it was not a complete football game, and I think that's the part that should worry you just a little bit. Because it was Holy Cross, and you should come out. That should have been a 70-2 game with a throwaway in the end zone for a safety.
Yeah. How concerned are you? I started with this today, Don. Like, I'm breaking down this game, and I see UNLV is a good team. I see Kyle McCord, who's going to stop this guy. And then I look at the special teams, and Vegas has excellent special teams, and Syracuse is it's been a scene here for the opening month of the season. Yep. But what do you make of it? I mean, it's obviously all different things. Like, getting a punt blocked is very different than missing a field goal. But what do you make of the special teams right now, and how much can that improve in the middle of the season as we go forward?
Special teams is an interesting unit because typically the head coach will be more involved in special teams to allow his coordinators to really do their thing on the offensive defensive sides of the ball. But special teams is where you get your guys who aren't starters, although we do sometimes see starters, in Syracuse special teams. But typically they're not your starters, and they're the guys who want to prove something. And I think, I hate to go back to this day and age of NIL and everything else, but what's your motivation? What's your motivation to get out there and show yourself? And when you're having problems with special teams, it's really an indication of something to me. I say an indication of you're not getting those guys who are not full-time starters really dialed in, really being hungry, and I think that's an indication of just a bigger problem on the team.
And then you look at the kicking, which is a whole different thing, right? I mean, a lot of kicking is mental and whatever's going on. Like, we look at Brady Dendenberg has struggled this year. He's had a couple blocked. He had one that duck hooked left, and then you bring in the other kicker in Jaden O, and it was an okay-looking kick, but it went right off the right upright last game. How does that... I don't know if you can get inside the mind of a kicker, Don. That's probably hard for most to do. But how does that affect the rest of the team? Obviously, it's got to affect your thoughts as head coach, your thoughts as a coordinator. Are you pressing as a quarterback because you're like, we got to score a touchdown? How does it affect the rest of the team when you don't have full confidence in the kick game?
Everything you just said comes into play. It puts pressure on the defense in what you can call, whether or not you can take a chance, what side of the 50 you're on. And obviously, to your point about offensively, you might go for it on fourth down because you don't have confidence in your kicker. But the other piece is, to your point about getting into the head of a kicker, the kickers are like goalies in hockey and soccer, where they're just kind of this single guy who you don't know he's there until you need him. Right, and there's all this play that happens in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden this is the guy you need, and he better come through, and he better hit that game winner. And that's when, like I said a moment ago, if your team, probably the guy that the entire team needs to love, it's the kicker. Yeah, I remember, we used to end practices where we would, the day before the game, where the entire team would rally behind, Tim Vesling was our guy, right? Mm-hmm. The entire team would rally behind Tim Vesling, and we kept marching him further and further back to see how far he can hit a field goal. And the entire team needs to be behind him, because when that guy comes off the field, if he misses a kick and nobody talks to him, oh boy, that is a lonely, lonely place to be. And so this is another indication that if you're having problems at the kicker position, this is another indication that you need team unity to come behind that kid.
Yeah, I say Brady Dendenberg, we'll see who the kicker is this week. He does have like a personalized handshake, I think, with literally everybody on the team. So he's got good vibes for the rest of the team. Maybe something like that, right, can help you dig out of a problem if you're having trouble, right?
Whatever it is, in baseball, whether they put the rally cap on, do something to get everybody going in the same direction. But yeah, there's certainly having those kinds of relationships. But again, he could have a special handshake with everybody. He might miss a guy or two, or he might go up to a guy, and the guy might just turn his back on him and say, "I'm not shaking your hand, man. You just missed that kick," right? Yeah. It's got to be a team thing to get behind a kicker, because, like I said, that guy is out there all by himself, and whether it's an extra point, or 50-yard to win the game, it's still the same pressure.
Yeah, and I get this is limited sample size early in the season. But how strange, Don, is this to see? Like, in my lifetime, I do not recall, there have been good kickers, great kickers, okay kickers, whatever, but I don't recall Syracuse really ever having a significant kicking issue in the last, 40 years. Maybe I'm not remembering everything, but this is kind of strange to be talking about at all when it comes to Syracuse.
You know what? When the dome was built, there were two things that you knew we should have, and right now we have it in Kyle McCord, a quarterback who can sling it, and that's what we've always said with the dome. It's climate controlled. Kicking is the other one. You don't have to worry about the wind. You don't have to worry about the wet. It's a climate controlled. It's an ideal for a kicker. I didn't even realize when I was playing that we were on track to break the NCAA record, which we did. Actually, I think in the Penn State game in '87, we broke the record for consecutive PATs. And to your point, we've had some great kickers, punters, and place kickers over the years, and it's never been a problem because we were able to attract the kid who knew he can come in and the ball's going to be right there, the wind's going to be, non-existent, and it was a perfect, ideal environment to kick in. And so this is odd. You're right. This is not something that we've dealt with here since the dome's been built.
I think that extra point streak ended up stretching to like 11 years or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, John Biscup missed like one of the first few extra points of his career, and then never missed again. He's like, all right, we're done with that.
Exactly. And here's the thing. You remember John Biscup.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I say that one guy is so pivotal. It was Donnie McCauley and Tim Vesling and John Biscup.
Yeah. John. Yeah. Shout out to Andre Schmidt, who was here for 5 years and was just outstanding. Let's get him another COVID year. Bring him back.
Exactly.
We love Schmidt. That guy. He would just kick it straight every single time. It was beautiful. All right, Donnie. So we've talked a lot about kicking because my concern is it may come down to that on Friday. And The last month tells me it might come down to that in the wrong way. Setting that aside, what are you looking for in this game tomorrow night that should decide this thing?
I think they're going to have to contain Malik Williams. And he's like I said, he's a big kid. He's a decent runner. They're going to have to keep him in the pocket, put pressure on him. Don't let him get comfortable. I think that's going to be the key defensively. On the offensive side, I really like. I know that they're letting Kyle McCord throw the ball a ton. I like to see them start to establish a run game. They're going to need to establish a run game once they get into the heart of the ACC conference. Ironically, the rest of the conference, the ACC that Syracuse has to play now, we thought was favorable. It's actually a pretty good conference. And so they're going to have to establish a run game. So I'd like to see them get that done tomorrow night.
All right, we'll see how it goes tomorrow night. We'll all be up late for this one tomorrow. Looking forward to Cuse and UNLV. All right, Donnie, good stuff.
Yep.
Thanks as always. We'll talk next week.
Sure thing. Absolutely.
There he is, our guy Don McPherson, as always, brought to you by our friends at Feldman Brothers Automotive. With that, we'll take a break. Phone lines open for the next, 20, 25 minutes or so. When we come back, we can get you in at 315-437-7644. And this hour brought to you by William Matar. Chris Brown talking Buffalo Bills coming up at 5:15. We'll step aside for a few. Back next here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Yeah, I've seen